When I was asked to write this essay, I initially said no, and that's strange for me because I'm a man of faith and I believe greatly in hope. My reluctance wasn't because I didn't think it was important, and certainly not that I'm not outraged at the murder of George Floyd and so many others, including Terrence Williams and Felipe Santos, two men who I have been fighting for years to get justice. Two men they mysteriously disappeared at the hands of one sheriff's deputy. Wasn't that at all. It was simply because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from all the hate and the division and the vitriol that I see online and on television from one to another. I'm exhausted from seeing these kinds of senseless murders play out over and over again and nothing changing in our society. The level of racism and brutality that George Floyd faced is something that we as Black people know all too well. When I saw that video, I had so many raw, guttural emotions. I felt for him and his family. I felt for all of us as Black people. I felt for my 5-year-old son. As I watched with tears in my eyes, it brought back a flood of years of emotions, carrying what feels like the weight of racism on my neck. From as far as back as I can remember, growing up in New Orleans, which in the 70s and 80s had one of the most corrupt police departments in the country, brought back memories of walking to school, high school, being stopped and frisked, or later walking to work in the French Quarter, been made to lay down on the ground while they searched me for no reason at all. Or all the times I had to keep my hands on the hood of a hot police car in the middle of the Louisiana heat, almost burning them while I was searched simply because I was Black in a white neighborhood. It brought back the pain of 2012 when I was leaving my own studio, preparing for a visit from sitting president at the time, Barack Obama. When I was pulled over by two white police officers in a situation that quickly could have gotten out of hand. And that could have become a hashtag simply because I was driving a nice car. I'm exhausted from watching white children get away with crimes because their parents had a discussion with the judge over a game of golf, while our children are being locked up for years for crimes that were far less egregious than what their kids are accused of. I'm exhausted from getting onto elevators and white women getting off because I'm 6'6" and Black, and they see a threat before they even know who I am. I'm tired of seeing these murders of unarmed Black men and women, and no one seems to care. It is exhausting. So much so that the writer in me had no words, had nothing to say, until I remember my late mother's voice saying to me, "Baby, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." So I dried my eyes and put pen to paper for not only myself, not only for hope, but for mourning to come for millions of us who just want to be treated fairly, for those of us who want justice for all, and for my 5-year-old son. Let me tell you about my 5-year-old. He loves to play with his electric race cars. And anytime he asks, I stop what I'm doing, get down on the floor, and I play with him. Every time my car flies off the track, he laughs, as only a child can. So innocent and so pure. Most times I'm not even looking at the cars. My attention is fully on him, studying the joy and the innocence in his beautiful brown face and wondering how long can this innocence last? How long can I protect him from the cruelness of this world? How long can he hold on to that same innocence that allows him to describe all of his friends at school to me, but never mention them by race? It is a beautiful thing. But with every passing day, it's fleeting. Every time I look at him, my heart aches for this tough conversation about his brown skin that is coming and no doubt coming soon. When he was born, I was hopeful that by the time he was old enough to ask the hard questions, I could talk to him about police brutality and racial profiling in past tense, just as my mother had talked to me about the Jim Crow South that she grew up in past tense. But yet I find myself still waiting for that morning to come that she talked about. Looking at his young face, I often ask myself, how do I broach this conversation? How will I explain that even though Mr. Rogers once said, look for the helpers, sometimes those very helpers will judge his skin before they see his humanity? I know that as a father and a Black man in America, it is my duty to prepare him for the harsh realities that await him outside of the watchful eyes of his loving parents. It will be a hard, heartbreaking conversation, but one that I must have and I'm going to have soon. I will explain to him that we are only 12 to 14% of the population. So this fight will continue to be a long and arduous one. But I would tell him with pride to never give up. I would tell him that progress is made in small steps. And even if you get exhausted like me, you gotta fight on, you gotta fight on. Because there are always signs of daybreak before the morning comes. Like just as some slaves saw their children free, it was a sign of daybreak. Just as my parents who had white-only water fountains saw me be able to drink from any fountain that I wanted, that was a sign of daybreak. And now with the death of George Floyd and so many others, and people seeing George's murder played out in 8 minutes and 46 seconds of real time, it moved the country. It moved the world. Not just Black people, but all people. This was a sign of daybreak. And this is when I knew morning was coming. When I heard every civil rights leader alive that I know say to me that they have never seen this kind of galvanization of all races come together to peacefully protest injustice, I knew that morning was coming. It is my hope that as we continue these hard conversations and we come out of our respective corners to talk to each other, but most of all to hear, we got to start hearing each other, so that this pain, this grief, this mourning in America will give way to mourning in America. Here's to every human being who is fighting for signs of daybreak.